So now, enough about me. Me, the myth of me. This is a very interesting topic. I've heard Ron several times. I've never seen him get into this topic. I'm very, very curious and very interested because this is a great topic. You know, Saturn, you know, is a planet that does have a reputation for being tied to karmic effects and some negativity too, or what we actually, you know, describe as being negative. You know. So, and Satan and the devil and all these connections. So I'm sure Ron is going to give us an interesting angle. So big hand today for Ron Watson.
Thank you. Oh, that would help. Okay, is it over? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, well, the reason we record these is because we put them up on YouTube, so if anybody wants to watch them, especially the students that are in my classes where they can go back and review a class. I've been doing astrology for a lot of years. Many of you know me, some of you don't. I generally start out telling my story because it's really, it's pertinent to the evolution of my own development in astrology. In my early 20s, I was the most wanted man in the United States for armed robberies. New York, Maryland, Virginia, Ohio, Texas, and Michigan wanted me. And I was a bit of a terror, and I went into prison for, kind of did it on the installment plan in different states. After I'd finished one, the next one would come and get me, and so they lined up for me, and I served a cumulative amount of years, of 9 years in prison, which was a blessing in disguise. And many people have said, you know, that I went to prison to bring what I brought out to them, because the message is really, really life-changing. Not just life-changing in the fact that it can give you a handle on how to deal with life's challenges and with the Saturn 9 influences in your chart and all these other things that are in your life, but it can also enlighten you to the deeper mysteries of the early Christian teachings. In those 9 solitudinal years, it was somewhat like a monastery for me. Put me in a cell and keep me there, and there's nobody to entertain me but myself. And you know, the self is too small an object for perpetual enthusiasm, so very soon you're looking for something to do with your time and your energies, or you just sit back like some of them did and listen to earphones all day and kind of vegetate away. I went on a search because I was looking for meaning, and I was looking to understand my life and understand what it was all about. And it led me on a journey of astrology. And the way I got into astrology initially was through a black man who made amazing predictions about myself and about others. And his name was Percy John Newton. And I was quite astounded by some of the accuracy of his predictions. And it set me on the course to understand how he knew what he knew. And I spent, as I said, 9 years. I had a captive clientele. Nobody went anywhere. So if I could make predictions in there and see their accuracy, because I could follow the lives of, you know, the 5,000 men in prison when I was doing their charts. I didn't do 5,000 charts, but I did a good number of them for the guards as well as the inmates and the psychologists that were in the prison. So it kind of started me out on the course. Of course, if I had a Mercury-Mars affliction in prison, I didn't worry about a car accident, which a Mercury-Mars affliction might indicate to you out here. In fact, I just was looking at Ann's chart the other day, and she was over, and I said, you know, you're prone to a car accident right now. She didn't say anything to me. Just didn't, blank face. Yeah, until we went out, I walked her out to the car, you know, and she says, by the way, I had an accident the other day.
I backed into expansion of that a week and a half before. Yeah. And I've for the first and only accident I've had with the car that I have now.
Yeah, but you had to make me right. So anyway, the whole point is that, and here, in prison, you did a car accident. You tell somebody that you better watch your mouth, Mercury Communication, and Mars is an injury, and I'd say don't get in a conflict with somebody. And my best friend, I told him not to get in a fight. He's a Leo, a fighter. I said, just be careful. I see a head injury. If you're not careful this time, be careful. And he's Mr. Tough Guy. Oh, nobody can whip me. You know, we're in an environment that there's a lot of fighting and a lot of violence, unfortunately. And he kind of laughed it off. And then one day we were walking over to the cafeteria for lunch, and there's a little area where you can walk where the guards can't see you from the shooting towers, and you can kind of grab ass, but you don't want to ever do that in front of a guard tower. They'll think you're fighting, and they're liable to shoot you. So you kind of learn in the prison after spending years in prison, you know where those blind spots are. And we got to that spot, and he grabs me from behind, and he spins me around real quick 3 times, and says, if I'm going to get an ass whipping, Ron, I'm going to give you one. He was playing with me. And when he set me back down, I very quickly turned around like this to face him. I broke his nose. So I was fulfillment of that prophecy, unbelievably. So, you know, it's astrology is an amazing thing. I've seen a lot in my years, both in and out of prison, but I've been doing this since I came out of prison. I've been teaching and lecturing and sharing my knowledge. I have a book out. I invite you all to be sure and get a copy of it if you can. It's called The Greatest Story Never Told. It'll be available in the back, and we also have CD lectures and albums if you're interested in more of this metaphysical stuff. I think you find it enlightening, and the book will definitely open your eyes to a lot of new things. I hope to do that today. I hope to show you some amazing parallels to Saturn and Satan and to astrology, and to give you some insights into just exactly how powerful these influences are, and how they're really in your life all the time, but you don't realize it. How many of you realize that Santa Claus is a caricature of Satan, the devil, Saturn? How many of you know that Christmas is a Saturnalia? How many of you know that the word the word Santa, if you just move a couple letters around, is Satan? Did you know that? How many of you know that Santa Claus was an old, emaciated, thin man in Europe who gave you stones or rocks, coal in your stockings if you misbehave? And how many of you know that Saturn rules rocks, crystals, and minerals? And so if you were naughty, you received that. If you were nice, you got what? Good things. Well, that's kind of the nature of Saturn. He is the reaper. You've seen the guy with the scythe, no time, Father Time. That's who Saturn is, Father Time. Chronos comes to his ancient name was Chronos. So we got our word chronometers from. Watches, Father Time. I used to have a watch that had the name of the watch. Some of you have been around as long as I have. No, there used to be a watch company called Hellbros, Hell Brothers, and they had a symbol of Saturn on it. That was their logo. So the watchmakers knew from where their trade came from, Father Time. So there's so much here. Santa Claus is a personification of Saturn, I said. I said he was a thin, emaciated old man with a beard in Europe. He never got fat till he got here to the United States. Then he became pudgy Santa Claus. so Santa Claus really, and in fact his name is Saint Nicholas. And if you look up, go in a dictionary and look up Old Nick, it's the name for the devil, Old Nick.
December 6th.
Did you know that? So Saint Nicholas is really that. So we use words like in the nick of time. Saint Nick, we're back to Nick, the old devil, Saturn. So that's what we're going to look at today. Does this sound interesting? I hope it does. So you all have Saturn in your charts. You all have to deal with its energies. It's not all bad and negative. It's the serpent, Satan, the devil, the serpent, the dragon. All these personifications you find in Scripture are applicable to Saturn. And Saturn was a positive force as well as the negative. Nobody ever talks too much about the positive side of Saturn, but Saturn is the serpent on the staff. And if you've ever seen a caduceus, the healing arts of the medical profession, that caduceus represents the raising up of that primal energy on the spine, up the staff, the Ida and Pingala of yoga, raising it up to the higher chakric levels for enlightenment. So when Saturn's raised up to the higher levels, you have the enlightened being, you have a person that has taken the generative energy, okay? If I sire a child, okay, the word sire is desire as well, they're related. My desires, my passions, all that stuff. If I sire a child, that's Saturn's energy. Okay? That's a generation of children. You all have generations of children, okay? If I use that energy wrong, it's called degeneratively. And if my life is spent in wasting that energy in a degenerative way, the act's not done in a mutual loving relationship, you bring a lot of karma on yourself. Because when you join another person in that act, you're actually taking on a lot of their energy and their karma. Okay? You can't help but have that in yourself, when you do it. So that's why love's so important. Love purifies it. So anyway, so if you raise that energy up, then what do you have? If you think about this a minute. Have you ever seen the saints' pictures in the old days? What do they have around their head? A what?
Halo.
Halo. A circle. How many of you looked at Saturn in the heavens today? What is around Saturn? A ring. They were only trying to describe something. That knowledge has been lost to humanity. It's an aura. Oh, it's a, they were showing that Saturn's energy had been raised up. Okay? Do you remember the woman that was healed of, what's the point of raising it up? Moses raised up the serpent on his staff in the Old Testament for the healing of the people. What does that mean, he raised up the serpent on the staff? He raised up that kundalini on his staff for what? For a healing. To bring healing power into his hands. You remember the story of Christ? The woman touched the hem of his garment. She had an issue of blood for 12 years. She couldn't get rid of it. She immediately was healed by touching his garment. And what did he say? He said, "Who touched me? For I behold virtue has gone out of me." What is a virtue? What's a virtuous woman, a virtuous person? It's somebody that maintains that energy. Okay?
What does it mean when the snake is in a tree branch?
We're getting back to the story of Adam and Eve, really. Okay, I'm not sure exclusively to answer that question. Adam and Eve ate of the knowledge of good and evil. And immediately they beheld their nakedness, and they were what? Ashamed. Well, what that's about is that the fall of man came from Saturn, or Satan, the devil, the serpent. And it wasn't an apple. Everybody thinks that apple. The Adam's apple is right here. The misuse of this voice box caused the fall of man. Because what happened? They beheld their nakedness and they were ashamed. What does that imply? What does shame imply? Guilt. What does guilt imply? Self-accusing. Right? So now what happens? It's not my fault. It's the woman thou gavest me, Adam says. He's not going to take the blame. He's going to find someone to blame. That's called scapegoating. No, we're back to goats. Now we're back to Capricorn. Now we're back to Saturn. Amazing connections, isn't it? Coincidences, of course. But anyway, so next thing happens is he blames God, actually. He says, "It's not my fault. It's the woman thou gavest me. It's her fault. And you gave her to me, so you take the blame." So that's what happens when you're guilty, by the way. The more guilty you are, the more you're going to find other people to accuse. The most accusatory people are the guiltiest people. Because you can't handle it. You got to project it. You got to find someone else to blame. Wives are convenient, Elena. Thank you. We do that. That's just their nature, okay? And so what is this all about accusing? They were in a place called paradise. Paradise comes from two roots. Para means what? Beyond, like parapsychology. Dice means to divide. They were in a place beyond division until Diablos entered in. The ancient name for the devil again. The Diablos comes from two roots, di, divide, and abalos, abolish. So the divider, the destroyer, enters into a place that's beyond division. And guess what happened? The fall of man. And so, what were the curses? Adam, you shall earn the bread by the sweat of your brow. And women, you shall bear children in pain and anguish, okay? Why? That was the punishment, okay? For coming out of paradise. Now, this is all about understanding the nature of this Satan, the devil, the serpent. In scriptures, and I tell my students in astrology, by the way, I have a new class starting on the 13th of September if you want to join us. 12th of December. Really, is it the 12th? Saturday, 12th. She keeps me in line. So anyway, so if you'd like to join us, it's a great class. We're just finishing up one next week. We have a couple more weeks. But the point is that Saturn in the Bible, if you want to understand astrology, the best way to understand it is understand scriptures. Because scriptures is full of astrology. Okay, the 3 wise men were what? Astrologers. Did you know that? Any modern Bible will tell the truth. They were astrologers. And the purpose of them was to lead us to the cradle of what? Of the divine. I still believe that today, that the true purpose of astrology is to lead you to the cradle of divine realization. That's its purpose. If it does that, it's a wonderful thing. Okay? So, we're back to the scriptures. Satan, the devil, is called the accuser of our brethren. He who accused our brother before God both day and night. His whole role is to get you to accuse God and each other. To divide and alienate, to separate, divide. Diablos, divide and conquer. It's a whole military strategy. So if I want to divide you consciously, all I have to do is get you to feel guilty. If I get you to feel guilty, I'll make you sick. You know why? The body can't sustain a long period of guilt. It'll make you sick. Guilt destroys life. Anything causes you to live the less is evil. Did you hear that? Anything you cause another person to live the less is evil. Anything you do to cause another person to live less is evil. Spell evil backwards, what's it say? Live, L-I-V-E. Spell the devil backwards. The past, live, the past tense of living. Christ said to Peter, who personified Satan, Peter, would you believe that? Founder of the church, the rock of the church. Christ said to Peter, get behind me, Satan. Get behind me, Satan. You know? They approached him and said, how do you speak of Moses? You're not even 30 years old. How can you speak of Moses? And what did he say? I am, and I am, and I am. He was the eternal presence. He wasn't I am, I was, and I will be. I am. He's the eternal now. The only place that you can really find the true presence of God within you is in the now. And the more you can be here now, the more perfect you can know that Godhead in you. The word now is interesting. It's in know. K-N-O-W. I say the difference between a good student and a poor student is simply their ability to be here now. Not always thinking about the past. Oh, I got to pick up some bread when I leave. Oh, I got to go do this and that. You're not even here. You're gone. A good student is here, focused right now. But no, let's just give him Redlet. We'll give him some pills. That'll cure all that. Anyway, I don't want to go there. So I'll become the accuser. So anyway, so what are we dealing with? We're dealing with Saturn. I haven't even touched it. I could probably do without it, you know what I mean? I want you to understand this nature of this beast, okay? The boogeyman, Saturn, the devil, the serpent, the dragon, okay? Before we go there, I'm going to just show you this real quick. The Trinity of our being. All the planets are made up of these 3 symbols, the circle, the crescent, and the cross. And it's the most profound psychology ever developed, and it was developed 2,000 years ago. And many of the psychologists today, of course, have named it different things. The id, the superego, you know, Freud and Jung and all. Jung was into astrology very much, by the way. He broke with Freud because he was really getting into all these different areas. But the circle is the sun if you put a dot in the middle of it. The crescent is the moon if you make a double crescent out of it. And of course the cross is on in all the planets that have a meaning. So if you look at the symbol for the moon, it's a double crescent. If you look at Venus, it's a circle over a cross, isn't it? So what dominates? The physical form, the body, the sun, the word, the desire, all the physical world is dominated by the spirit. Mars is the very opposite. We use an arrow, but it's really a cross on top of a circle. And that symbolizes the flesh, the desires are dominating what? The body. I mean the spirit, rather. So we have a difference between Venus and Mars, don't we? Venus says, let's put love first, and Mars says, no, let's get it on. Difference between the 2 energies, right? So that's the difference. If you look at Jupiter, you got the crescent on top of a cross. Okay, in Jupiter. So what dominates in Jupiter? The compassion, the feelings, the emotions. Okay, the soul is dominating. All right? In Saturn, we have the opposite. We have the cross on top of a crescent. And Saturn is the domination of the physical, the senses, and all the desires and all those things are dominating the soul, the feelings. That's why we say Saturn is cold and unfeeling. Jupiter is compassionate, benevolent. Okay? Zeus is the ancient name for Jupiter, okay? Zeus, Jesus, Jesus. Sound familiar? Archetype for Jesus. He's called Jesus throughout the world today. Jesus, Zeus. Why? Because he was that's the archetype. If you want to understand Jupiter, you have to understand Jesus. The more you understand Jesus, the more you understand Jupiter. See why he mixed them together. Astrology and Christianity tied together undeniably. Anyway, so when you see this here, you're talking about the conscious mind, the subconscious mind, the physical body. And everything you put into this subconscious mind, the feminine receptive subconscious, it's what fecundates it. Okay, it's what gives life to what you seed it with. If you put the seed in here, you're going to get something out here. And how does that work? Huh? Everything you say to your subconscious goes in and is taken without any filtering. It doesn't take it in and say, oh, that's not meant that way. It's a literal absorption, whatever you say. So if you get emotional, the subconscious is very emotional. It's the subconscious. It's feminine, receptive. It's not projective like this masculine conscious mind. It's feminine, receptive. So whatever goes into that subconscious is going to be seeded. And the more emotion you have when you say it, the more power it has to go into your subconscious mind. So what is the emotion? Anger? Have you ever got angry and saying, I'm sick and tired of you? What did you put into your subconscious mind? Oh, yeah. Or how about this? He's a pain in the ass. And you wonder why you got hemorrhoids. You think I'm kidding? The Word is made flesh. The Word is made flesh, but he grew in what? He grew in grace and in truth. How are you growing? You hear what I'm saying? Every word you're accountable for. It's not what goeth in your mouth that defiles you, it's what comes out of your mouth that defiles you. A man who is perfect in speech is perfect in every way. Not in some ways, in every way. Why don't we teach our children this? Why don't we teach them something other than the stuff you hear on the radio and music that's polluting their minds, corrupting their souls? And we wonder why our country's gone to hell. Because everything is permissible. Wow. The power of words. And one of my lectures, I've given it here, I think, is that a healing and destructive power of words. But I need to reiterate on this because, you know, we forget it. You need to be reminded, okay? I remember visiting a friend. I've shared some of my stories with you. I hadn't seen him for years. John Spire. He's a multimillionaire, very rich man. Good friend of mine. And I was in Chicago. I hadn't seen him for 10 years. And I went to his office. His office would make the president's office look like nothing. I mean, it's an amazing office. And I'm sitting there, and he's talking to me about his ex-wife and how she's alienated the children against him, and how I didn't even know he'd been divorced. I didn't realize I'd been out of touch with him. And how, you know, it breaks his heart what she's doing to him, and I'm brokenhearted over this and that, and he kept saying those things. I finally looked at him and said, John, when's the last time you had your heart checked? And he about fell out of his chair. He said, how could you know that, Ron? I said, well, you've been sitting here for the last 20 minutes telling me how broken your heart is. He said, well, I was in the hospital this week. They didn't want me to leave because they found I got pain in my arm and my chest. In my chest and my arm. So what the point being is, he's creating it. The more emotion he has, the more he speaks it. The more it becomes a reality. You see, if I hypnotize one of you in this room and I put you in a trance, and I tell you I'm going to burn you with a fire, and I go get an ice cube and I come back and I touch your arm with it, guess what happens? Your arm will get a blister. How can that be? I didn't burn you with fire. But your subconscious believed it, and it acted accordingly. I can make you a very strong person, suspend you between two chairs, and sit on you, 200 pounds, and you won't buckle. Where does that strength come from? The feminine receptive subconscious. Better respect those women. The power behind us. We like to take credit for everything, you know. Men like to say, you know, it's my idea. A good woman makes sure that she's put those seeds there. In a subtle way, not in a direct, demanding way. All this making sense? Huh? Okay. How about it pisses me off? You want urinary tract problems? He's a pain in the neck. I have a friend that's lost 2/3 of his stomach. His favorite expression, even today, I couldn't teach him, I couldn't talk to him. His favorite expression is, I have no stomach for that. Or I'm belly aching. He had all the stuff there. You know, my book has a whole chapter on the power of the word and the words you use that destroy your life. I could keep doing this. I've had clients. I had a client sit with me one time for her astrology reading, and her name was Phyllis. Every time she referred to her husband, she said the same thing. I'm just fed up to here with him. I'm just fed up to here with him. And I finally, after a few of those, I stopped her and I said, Phyllis, let me ask you a personal question, but don't get offended by it. She said, sure, Warren, what is it? I said, well, when's the last time you had constipation? She was just shocked. She said, how do you know that? I was actually in the hospital. I can't believe you know that. How do you know that? Because you've been telling me you're fed up to here. Think I'm kidding? I've seen it over and over. You know, people speak their problems. I can be around a person for a while that if they have these expressions, I can tell you more their problems are. He's a backstabber. Well, you want problems in your past? Okay. You know, whatever you want to use it. You can do it. You can put it anywhere you want, you know? I remember I was having problems sleeping at night because my sinus would fill up, and I'd always have trouble breathing at night. And one day I was with a friend, and you know, I'm thinking I'm saying something real holy. He says, "How you doing, Ron?" You know, he's a lawyer friend of mine. We were over for dinner. He used to always tease me because I always fell asleep on his couch every time I came over there. But anyway, so he says, "How you doing, Ron?" I said, "Oh, I'll breathe better when I get on my feet." Wow, did I hear myself say that? As soon as I stopped saying it and I cleared my mind of that, it stopped. My sinus problems went away. I didn't have that problem. I could do this all day to you, you know? I mean, there's so much power in the word, and we have no idea how it sets us up for problems in our life. Back to what? A man who is perfect in speech is what? Perfect in every way. It's not what goeth in your mouth that defiles you, it's what comes out. You're judged by every word that proceedeth out of your mouth. You're judged by every word that proceedeth. Be a man of few words. Scripture says that. I often wonder, is a person neurotic because they talk so much, or are they talking so much because they're neurotic? I've never figured that one out. Anyway, think about that for a while. That's a one to put on. You can put that on your plate and think about it. What I know about it is this: that talking all the time is not good. The Sufis have a belief that if you separate the tongue from the upper palate for too long, you'll get very neurotic. It causes a lot of disorientation in your body, which teachers should know because they're teaching all the time. You're out in front of a group, you're teaching, you're talking all day. Or if I'm doing this all the time, eventually it can get to me. So you need to reestablish the electrical current in the body, because when you're not talking, your tongue usually touches the top palate. If you notice, isn't it interesting? Yeah. Do you? Yeah, so there's so much wisdom out here, different cultures and different languages and different beliefs, okay? I had somebody come to one of my lectures the other day, a couple weeks ago, and she was Jewish. She had a hard time because I was quoting all these scriptures, you know? I said, what does it really matter where the knowledge comes from, whether it's Christian, Jewish? I almost said something else. I don't believe in it. I have a hard time with them. Enough of that one. Anyway, so let me go on. I get sidetracked. I get going here. So I want to show you a couple scriptures that just prove this point to you. For there are three that bear witness in heaven. Heaven's within, but it's without. That's why I'm an astrologer. Okay? As above, so below. As within, so without. That's how astrology works. Okay? So, for there are three that bear witness in heaven: the Father, the Word, and the Holy Ghost. And these three are one. That's like saying the conscious, subconscious. They're different, but they're one. You can't separate them. Okay? There's another one, and Mary said, my soul doth magnify the Lord, and my spirit rejoiceth in God. Is that clear from there? Or is it okay? So notice what Mary said. The soul does what? It magnifies. Remember the picture of the The crescent, the soul. It's like a magnifying glass. So your soul does. Wow. Okay, for the word of God, we won't go. Seeing, listen to this one. Here, this is the key. Seeing you purified your souls. You're purifying this, the soul, the subconscious, in obeying the truth through the spirit, unto unfeigned love of your brethren. How do you purify your soul? By love. And who do you love? Your brethren. But how can you love your brethren if you don't love yourself? Oh, that's called forgiveness. You got to forgive yourself, right? That's why the whole message of Christianity was forgive. Because you can't be whole unless you forgive. If you want to continually harbor ill feelings towards other people, you're going to be ill. Quite frankly, you're going to be ill. It's not going to work against that person. It's going to work against you. Every evil thought you have towards another person, everything you say to another person, in your thoughts or in your words, has an effect on you. If I say to someone else, you son of a bitch, I hope you die, I've said that to my own soul. Because my subconscious, my soul, does not know the difference between you and I. It doesn't know it. It doesn't understand it. If I want to wake up tomorrow morning at 5 a.m. feeling wide awake, alert, and refreshed, and I give myself a suggestion, I say, I will wake up at 5 a.m. feeling wide awake, alert, and refreshed. Guess what? My subconscious got that message. I'll probably wake up, and I'll probably go back to sleep, but I'll wake up at 5 a.m. The point being, my subconscious heard that. I will wake up. If I said this, same words, but this one change, you will wake up at 5 a.m. feeling wide awake, alert, and refreshed. Guess what? The subconscious heard the same message. You and I is not distinguished by the unconscious. So every evil thought or word you speak towards another person comes only back to you and destroys your life, not theirs. You see where I'm coming from? Watch the tongue. I wasn't supposed to go this direction, but you know what? I just go the way the Spirit leads me. You know? My wife always says, Ron, you digress on this and this. Why don't you stay on the topic? Well, that's a hard time with that. This is my class I teach and how to interpret charts, yes.
Is there a message you can tell yourself that will bring procrastination?
Wow. First of all, I would never break anybody's back.
Talk about procrastination.
Have you ever had a broken back?
No.
Okay. Have you had back problems?
No.
Good, good. Don't say that.
It's the first time I ever said it.
You know, if it's the last time, let's say it. Okay. I'm very careful. I listen to words very well. Okay. So, you know, anyway, back to your question. I believe there's a lot of beautiful things out there for people to tap into. Affirmative words and meditations. I have a friend that he helped a psychologist produce amazingly beautiful affirmative meditation that's done with extraordinary graphics. It's hypnotic. You sit in front of your computer and just takes you away. And they're all positive affirmations. I think that's the best way. I don't think, you know, if you keep affirming, and I have the same weaknesses as anybody. I tend to say I'm not good with names. I don't remember names very well of people. And that's just affirming it. I'm just putting that word back into my subconscious mind, so I'm reaffirming it, okay? I think the answer to that question is not to constantly hold it in consciousness that you are a procrastinator, and stop thinking that way about yourself and holding that vision. It's so important if you have children. Most of you have raised your children, they're gone, but you know, I've learned a lot about raising kids, about their minds and the way they work. I had a friend of mine in Michigan who raised children, 17 of them. He took in 17 kids that the states couldn't handle anymore. They had given up on them. And she had a farm. And she took these children from the state to try to bring them up and raise them. And they were mostly teen kids who were real rebellious. And I said to her, Mary, I said, why is it you can do what nobody else does with these kids? Why is it you accomplish so much in their development? She says, well, Ron, we learned something, my husband and I, that's helped us a lot. And I said, what's that? She said, well, we've discovered that children respond more to what you say about them than they do what you say to them. I said, really? How do you work that? And she said, well, here's what we do. She says, we have 17 kids. We have very strong discipline here. We have no choice. We have to be disciplinarian. She said, when we have dinner, we always make the child that misbehaves go down to the basement. And the basement's right next to the dining room. And we know that the kids are going to be curious, and we know what the children are going to do. They're going to come up to the door, and they're going to listen to the table talk. So what we do is my husband and I, when they're down there, we know they're sitting there by the door. We tell them we go down to the bottom of the stairs, but they don't. But she says we know they're there. So what we do is we call table talk. We start talking about what a great amount of improvement we've seen in that child, and how much progress they're making. And we talk about all the good things that they do. And what happens is they hear that about themselves, and it begins to form in their mind that that's who they are. You know, it's not about telling a child something, it's about what you say in front. How many times you've been around parents, it's just a terrible twos. He's just a terrible twos. You know, he's just like his father, and his father was no good. You know, whatever. People say these things, or she's like a bird, or she won't eat this, she won't eat that. Why put that in their mind? You keep putting it in there, it's going to be true. They're pure receptivity, those children. They're sucking it all up, right? So, you know, be aware of this. The book has a lot about all this. I hope you get the book if you haven't read it. Anyway, let's go on. This is just a bit about how I interpret charts and understand them. And okay, this is not the lecture I wanted to give. Let's get okay, let's go back. Jovial. Yeah. Okay, jovial. Jovial comes from Jupiter. Comes from the word Jove, Latin for Jupiter, which means born under the lucky planet of Jupiter. Hence, happy and healthy. Okay, let me get back over here. All right. Pan, the goat, god of lore, to satisfy and fulfill the lust of the flesh and gluttony and sexual excess was an attribute of Pan, the goat god. Capricorn, the goat, who was famous for his sexual conquest and was often depicted with an erect phallus. Okay, the word satisfy, guess where it came from? Saturn. Saturn, right? How about satiate? I satiated my senses. Saturn. Satire. You know what satirical humor is? You ever seen a satirical cartoon? What is it called? It pokes fun at people. It accuses them in a funny way. You know, like Nixon with a big nose when we used to see those cartoons, or Obama with the big ears, like, you know what I mean? It's satirical, making fun of other people at their expense. But a Saturn is the accuser of our what? Brother. It's another way to do that. You see that? So many words you use all the time are rooted in astrology. Okay? Desire of the Father. Think about the words or language. Okay? Capricorn, the word satire is someone who is satirical humor. I talked about that. Poking fun at that. We talked about that. Cairo got its name and meaning from the Egyptian El Kaaba, meaning for the planet Mars. Father Time in Europe, St. Nicholas, we talked about that. That belly figure is he's in the U.S. Okay, naughty or nice, Saturn was stern father figure. You notice he did reward the good. That's another thing about you when you're doing a chart, you're doing astrology. You have to recognize Saturn's not always bad. If you've got good karmic seeds you planted, Father Time's there to reward you. He's not always the bad guy. But if you got something you need to be straightened out about, he's going to punish you. And usually it's by denying you something. Okay? That's how he works often, you know. So, okay. St. Nicholas, we talked about this. Santa Claus was called St. Nick, which came from Old Nick, a name attributed to the devil. The phrase in the nick of time was related to Father Time. And by the way, when you read scriptures, another thing you can realize about Saturn, if you're studying astrology, it's good to know, Saturn afflictions make you impatient. Okay? Why? What does it say in the Bible? The devil rages for he knows he has but a short time. You hear it? So people that are living by the clock, oh my God. You know, it's like me getting set up today. Oh my God, 10 minutes late. You know, I can't find my thing. See, that's all Saturn stuff. It's like that fearful I don't have enough time and don't have enough what? Money. That's all Saturn stuff. That's called type A and type B behavior. You ever heard of that? Yeah. Huh? Type A people die early because they die why? Because they're always worrying and rushing and hurrying. The heart can't stand that all the time. It's too much, you know. It's going to take you down. That's why he's called the Grim Reaper, okay? The devourer of all his children. Huh? The devil's called that. He's a roaring lion who seeketh whom he might devour. In astrology, he was the devourer of all of his children. In mythology, Saturn devoured all of his children, but he never got Zeus. He was preserved alive and hidden in a cave, grew to manhood and overthrew the wicked father. So what's all that about, huh? Jesus, Zeus, Saturn, Satan. Oh, come on. If you don't see the connections, there's something wrong. You know, I tell people, I say, you know, if you really want to close your eyes, go to that fundamental belief system, go to it. That's good. I honor that. If you just be a good Christian, you're going to be a Christian, believe that way. If you believe you're going to hell, if you think this way or do that, study astrology, you're going to hell. You know, don't do it. Somebody asked me one day, I was being interviewed on astrology. Somebody said, "What do you do about somebody? How do you try to convince somebody that doesn't thinks astrology is so bad?" I said, "You don't. Why would you want to? You know, I'm not here to proselytize anybody. You come here because you want to hear it and see it. Good. You know, if it's not your cup of tea, there's the door. That's terrible, isn't it?" Yeah, so,
Rob, when you talk about
The different houses, what they mean.
oh my gosh, no. We'd be here all day. We'd be here all day. And it's not only the houses, because it wouldn't be just the houses.
About the karmic influences of Saturn, that's your first.
Yeah, we're going to go there. Yeah. Thank you for keeping me on. Keep me on. Okay. 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 Saturn is withholding good from the naughty. We talk about that. It's still impatient, rush, hurry, not enough time, money. It still takes its human toll in heart attacks and poor health. The book Type A and Type B Behavior and Heart Attacks talked about that. And that was done in a Harvard study. It was an amazing study. So Father Time is still doing that. Chronos or Saturn chronometers, watches, measuring devices of all kinds. The measure off of all things, the divider of time and space. Notice the difference between Zeus. Zeus is holy. Holy. Not divided. You're in your best state when you're integrated, when you have integration. If you've got all this stuff going on in the back in that subconscious mind, you know, that's disturbing you, you're not holy. You don't have a holy ghost. The Holy Ghost is the subconscious. Did you know that? The Holy Ghost is, where do you think ghost visions and dreams come from? Your subconscious. The Holy Ghost was an integrated unconscious. Holy Spirit is a conscious mind that's whole, complete, integrated. Make sense? All right. Yes, sir.
Just wanted to
Maya, the Sanskrit word Maya, which is often translated as illusion, is actually translated, the actual translation is to measure.
No kidding.
Yes,
Wow.
to measure, Maya.
Wow. Which is the illusion, and interesting.
There you go.
Thank you for that.
Cross-cultural, totally.
Yeah, I could have put that in my book. That would have been nice. Anyway, so the whole point of this is that you want to keep yourself, have integrity. You know, think about it. That's really what it's about. And Saturn tries to teach. Yes, sir. I'm sorry.
It's recently been discovered, and that some of the people are trying to understand the mental interference that is being projected on them by powerful people, you know, through microwaves and this and that. And they came upon a discovery that actually goes back to Germany.
Yes.
And actually probably goes all the way back to the physicist, the teacher Maxwell, that it's hidden knowledge, basically, that the brain operates on scalar waves.
Oh, absolutely it does, yes.
So then it would have a type of a, would it be that be a true consciousness, or would that be a consciousness that was passed on possibly from the spirit into, see, I see the spirit coming through the other side of the heart, and of course our side is the darkness that keeps it from coming through clearly. So I would see consciousness as coming from the spirit and shared by all, integrated in the one, you know?
I have no dispute with that. I find it interesting. It's a subject that would take me a whole different direction if I wanted to go into it.
Astrology.
Yeah, but I think that there's so much we don't understand. I mean, there's alpha rhythms, theta rhythms, there's all sorts of rhythms in the brain. I noticed when I get on an airplane and I travel on an airplane, I have all these prophetic abilities. I don't know why. It's like I'll be sitting next to somebody and I'll get a message. And I think it's something to do with the ionosphere, which is, by the way, an alpha rhythm. Did you know that? Ionosphere has a rhythm. My father was a scientist. He studied the ionosphere. And he told me that the ionosphere has a cycle, 8 cycles per minute, same as the brain. So, yeah, so that, you know, but every time I get in an airplane, I mean, I'm traveling, when I was traveling here, we were moving from Boston here. And I would be sitting next to somebody, and there was a guy next to me, and he asked me what I did. I said, I'm an astrologer. He said, you don't believe in that stuff, do you? And I said, yeah. I said, unfortunately, I do. So, and he's reading a book by Coven or somebody, something about something about a self-help book. Habits of successful people. And I looked at him and I said, you need that book. He looked a little shocked when I said that. I said, what do you mean I need it? And he's in a suit. He looks really impeccable, like, you know. I said, because you just got out of prison. And I said, you know, you've hurt a lot of people, and your daughter has really been hurt the most by your actions. He about fell out of his chair. Oh, how do you know that? I said, I just know. And I said, you just keep reading that book. I said, you better get your life back together. I said, maybe you can mend the fence with your ex and your daughter. But he was just flabbergasted. I told him, I said, you know, you're okay until you drink. Stay away from the liquor. That's what got you in trouble. And then another time I'm flying with another little black gal next to me, and she's sitting next to me, and she doesn't look right or left. I can tell she didn't want to converse. And there's a little younger black guy on the window that's a real annoyance. Forgive me, but he was. And just jumping up and down and making a lot of noise and disturbing everybody. But it wasn't her child. But anyway, I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden I get a message about her. And I'm thinking, gee, should I tell her or not, you know? Finally, I just can't resist it anymore. I said, you know, excuse me. I said, don't be offended, but I said, I got a message for you. She looked at me kind of like, who's this nut, you know? So I said, you know, I said, you just left a bad relationship. And I said, he was a player, and he caused you a lot of pain and heartache. I said, you're going somewhere where you're going to meet two other people. One's going to be a player again. You're going to be real attracted to him because you like the players. But I said, there's another one that's going to be a wonderful man that you could actually marry and be happy with forever. And he's the one you should pay attention to. And she started bawling, crying, just hysterically crying. She said, oh my God, you know. She says, God must have sent you to me. And, you know, I'm leaving Detroit because our plane went to Detroit before it went to Fort Lauderdale. She says, my friends had me come down to Fort Lauderdale, Florida, because I'm just devastated by what he's done to me. And I had to get away. And she said, I'm going to stay with them now. I said, you're going to have a good life, but just remember what I told you. And so I think she heard it. But the whole point is, I often think it's that alpha rhythm stuff, that brainwave patterning that you were talking about brainwaves and all that. Maybe when I'm up high, somehow I'm picking up a different frequency or connecting. I often thought that meditation brings that too. That by meditating, we sync with that higher alpha theta.
I don't know, I had some of that when I was a child, but I paid a heavier price for it. I got locked up.
Locked up, really?
Yeah, well, I was considered insane.
Oh, wow.
I couldn't handle it. I was too young for it.
Yeah. Well, I could tell you stories.
I'm not the only one.
No, I could tell you.
By far.
Yeah, yeah. Well, look, you know what? We all have, you know, I always tell my wife, you know, everybody has their stuff. We all do. Everybody's got a story to tell. And I don't care how perfect the couple looks to be and how everything looks just to be, they all have their stuff. We all do. That's part of life, okay? And may teach us to be more compassionate and understanding of other people, okay? So let's keep moving here. So remember the two states of Jupiter and Saturn, okay? If we're lucky, we get the message in the nick of time and no one panics. These are all words of nick of time. Panic is Pandora. That's all. It's Pan, the goat god. Saturn, Pan. Okay? You have to consider, the word consider comes from what? Sidereal, to be gathered with. It means to look at the stars. Consider means to look at the stars. That's the original intention. Okay? And lunacy comes from the Bible. Lunacy. To be afflicted by the moon. Trying to get your act together before the holidays and the possibility of receiving good gifts from a jovial. That's Jupiter. Saint Nick. You know what that now is. Instead of stones or coal. So I just try to show you the many words. There's so much here. Saturn rules rock, crystals, and minerals. The more you carry resentment and accusing spirit, the more you're going to have skeletal bone problems. You hear me? The more you have accusing heart, the more you carry resentment and harbor anger and resentment against your parents or whatever in your life. Until you forgive them, you're going to start having problems in your skeletal frame. Saturn rules the teeth and the bones. And you'll start having problems in those areas. Okay? So, every time I have an affliction or anything, I'm always considering and asking myself, what am I doing? Where am I weak? What's my weakness? What am I creating for myself? So, not that I'm impervious to all of this, just because I teach it and know it. You know what I mean? I'm not the perfect person. I wish I was. But I do my best to understand it. So, okay. Okay. The devil is the author of what? Confusion. He's why. That's like going into an ice cream store and you got 31 flavors. You were okay. You're going in to get ice cream. Now you're really confused. 31 flavors to choose from. You know. So it's like Christ that kicked out the. Remember the man that was crazy and he cast out the devil, and he asked him his name and the devil said, "I am Legion, I'm many." That's who he is. He's the tester of faith in God. He's the deceiver. He's the liar. He's the murderer. He's the Maya of the Hindus. I love Maya now. I know what it means. The Shiva, the destroyer of Hindus. He's like a lion seeketh whom we might devour. He's the divider of time and space. Okay? Saturn, the rewarder of them that follow the law. Oh, look at that. Jupiter, Jesus, Jesus, the giver of grace, unmerited favor and forgiveness. Huh. I mean, those that follow the law are subject to the law. You know that? Huh? Yeah, you know, but the problem with following the law is it says oh man, you're responsible for the last tithe, every little tittle. Everything you have to be perfect in if you're going to follow law. Because the law is unforgiving. You know, it doesn't have any room for forgiveness. So, it's a order of them. Okay, so you're either living under the law or under grace. Grace means unmerited favor. When I was in prison, I had a beautiful lady that was writing me from Iowa. She started writing me. I was writing on the prison paper, and so she happened to read one of the newspapers came out of the prison. And we became friends, and she started writing me and started sending me gifts. And I wasn't feeling too worthy of anything, you know, when I was in there. And one time she sent me Christmas gifts. They were beautiful things. She sent me a nice Christmas. And I write her back thinking I'm, you know, oh, you shouldn't have done this, all that BS, you know. She dressed me up and down like you wouldn't believe about knowing how to receive, you know. Instead of, you know, I mean, I got a lesson from her. And I told her, I said, you know what your name is? Grace. It means unmerited favor. That was her name, Grace. And she was trying to teach me a lesson. She taught me a lesson by scolding me so much. And so I learned that if somebody gives you something, accept it graciously. If you don't, you're not allowing them the flow of good coming to you from them. You're blocking that flow of God or good. You see it? So be receptive to other people's charity and goodness, okay? They need to give, just like you need to learn how to receive. Okay. Okay, Satan is an angel. He's a fallen angel. Satan works up by God's permission. If you doubt that, read the story of Job. Satan is an angel. He's a fallen angel, but he came into the council of the angels. He came into the council of the Lord, and he stood before the Lord, and the Lord said, did you see my righteous man Job down there? He said, oh yeah, he's righteous. Let me work on him for a little while, and he'll curse you to your face. Notice what Satan wants him to do? He wants to get him to do what? Curse. Accuse. That's his whole role. He's accuser of our brother. So what happens? The Lord says, okay, go down, but skin, bone, and flesh is one thing. Leave that alone. And if you know the story, Job lost it all. His family, the Sabians came in, raped and killed and destroyed his kids, his daughters, and his crops, and everything was ruined. His cattle, he was a rich, rich man. He lost it all overnight. And then you hear Job saying, whew, the Lord giveth, the Lord taketh away. Blessed be the name of God. Wow, what kind of man is that? You go home and your house is burned to the ground, you're going to say, praise the Lord, thank you, Lord. Oh, and this is great, huh? He said, and Job sinned not and cursed not in anything he said. He did curse the day he was born. He did do that. He did curse that. So now Satan comes back into the council of the angels, and the Lord gives, did you see my righteous man Job down there? And what does he say? Oh yeah, he's righteous. Skin, bone, and flesh is another thing. Let me work on him on that level. He will curse you to your face. So he gives him permission. Job breaks out in the worst kind of skin condition anybody can ever imagine. It's so bad and repugnant that his wife turns away from him. Said, you can't be a holy, righteous man, Job. Look at you, you despicable human being. Again, Job didn't sin. Now, the one question people ask me is sometimes when I talk about that, they say, well, who would believe in a righteous God that allowed those things happen to a righteous man? Who would believe in a God that will allow such a terrible thing to befall a man that's basically a righteous man? And I tell you why it happened to Job. Job had a weakness, and guess what it was? Job said this. It reveals why it happened to him. He said, "What I feared most came upon me." What do you think that's about? It's faith, isn't it? You know fear is faith? If you're walking in fear, you're walking in faith. If you fear you're going to get cancer, if you fear you're going to get attacked on the street, if you know, it's like a dog attacks a person that's afraid of him, you know? You probably wouldn't attack him, but he senses that fear. It's that energy that you're creating that brings upon many things onto your life. It's like I tell people that are having trouble in relationships very often, in marriage or really dating or whatever, and then women are saying, you know, I just can't keep a relationship. And I said, let me tell you something. The best way to make sure you don't keep a relationship is ask questions like, do you love me? Why do you think that is dangerous? You're planting the seed in that other person's mind of questions. And you're also expressing doubt and fear. And that fear and that doubt perpetuates something, a division, separation and alienation, because that's how Saturn works. So, you know, I used to do a lot of hypnosis in my life. I really love the mind and how it works and the subconscious, and I've always done experiments and things. And one of the things, though, I remember hypnotizing a friend of mine and his buddy, and they were over and he wanted to quit smoking, so I gave him suggestions and put him in a trance and stopped. Hadn't seen the guy in 6 months, and he comes knocking on my door with his buddy again. And his name is John. I remember when he walked in, I wanted to say, first thing I wanted to say, you hadn't had a cigarette, have you? I couldn't say that. You know I can't say that because I'm doubting. I'm expressing doubt. I'm the guy to put the positive affirmation in there that he would never smoke again. And I waited, and he stayed there for about 20, 30 minutes, and finally he said, Ron, I haven't had a cigarette. I said, I'm glad he told me that. Because I could never ask it. I would have never asked if he'd walked out the door. I'd have never asked him again. But the point is that the question betrays your faith. Okay? You want to be a person of positive faith. Every day in every way I'm getting better and better. What a great affirmation. One of the great hypnotists gave that to us. I tell people, get up in the morning, and if you like songs, all of you in this room remember the song, "Oh, what a beautiful morning. Oh, what a beautiful day. I've got a wonderful feeling. Everything's going to go my way." What a wonderful song. Yes, hon.
Somebody gets, many people cannot get hypnotized. Well, what's the reason?
Well, I'm not sure that's true, quite truthfully. They may resist it. If you're listening to a speaker who is really deeply penetrating your soul, you're somewhat hypnotized. If your attention span is greater than 10 minutes, which is about the conscious mind's attention span, that means your soul's listening. You're getting on a different level. You're hearing me on a different level. If you're sitting there for an hour and a half and you're not getting up and distracted and all that, then your mind is focusing in on a level that's deeper than the conscious mind, because the conscious mind cannot maintain a concentration very long. Most people's can anyway. So, we're talking about hypnosis. There have been a lot of subtle ways to hypnotize people. If you remember, we're all the age we can remember the Anderson commercials back in the days on TV. You remember the swinging pendulum they used to have? It said this, pain, 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 take Anderson, pain, pain. What are we, stupid? Yeah, okay. I got the message, I'll have some pain and I'll take your pills. Like a zombie, I'll go get my pills. What are we doing? Think about that. It was hypnosis. Those advertisers aren't dumb. They know what they're doing. How many times you heard about subliminal messages on your TV screens and on movie theaters? Popcorn pops up for a millionth of a second, but you see it. Your subconscious didn't miss it. God, I gotta go get some popcorn. Huh? That's subliminal. So, your subconscious is always receptive. It's picking up everything. And women, I think it's more perceptive than men sometimes. I believe that. I think that's why women are more intuitive. They should listen to their intuitions. You got a bad feeling about something or somebody, you should pay attention to that, You know, that's what that intuition was given to you, to protect you. You know, we got this to protect us, but you got to use your intuition. Okay, enough of that. You get me off on a course, I'll go anywhere. Okay, so Satan represents the body as a serpent force and is identified by the Hindus as Kundalini. The raising up of the serpent force on the spine, or the staff, is the role of the enlightened being. Moses raised up the serpent, we talked about that, for the healing of the nation. Even to this day, the healing arts use the caduceus as a symbol of the medical profession. I mean, it's amazing. You know, in fact, Hippocrates, the founder of medicine, said any physician who practices medicine without a knowledge of astrology is a fool. Wow, what an amazing thing to say. Okay. The word Santa, I showed you, is a transliteration of the word Satan. Okay. Satisfy, we talked about that. We talked about all this. How come I keep going back there? Capricious. The word capricious is from Capricorn. And amazing, isn't it? Okay. Satire, we talked about. Satirical humor, we talked about that. Okay. Father Time, we talked about. Okay, here's an interesting scripture. When Michael the archangel was contending with the devil over the body of Moses, he did not hurl forth the accusation. He simply said, "Let the Lord judge thee." Because it's an eternal paradox. You cannot accuse the accuser without becoming one yourself. Have you ever noticed that when you want to accuse the most is when someone accuses you? First thing you can do is start accusing them back. That's human nature, isn't it? But Michael, by the way, Michael's Mercury, messenger of God. He was the messenger of God, Mercury. And they always have these artistic depictions of Moses laying on a slab, dead, and these two angels with swords over his body. Ancient art, there's a lot of beautiful art like that that has been painted throughout history. But over the body of Moses, or over the body of Ron, is right here, in my heaven, right here, the kingdom of heaven. In the temple, where's my temple? It's right here. In my temple, the temple of God, right here. No, you're not, you are gods, you're gods, you're all children of the Most High. Scriptures, oh, you blaspheming, you. How can you tell me that? You know, it's sacrilegious. How can you think you're God? No, you're not, that you're gods, you're all children of the Most High. Let this mind be in you, which is in Christ Jesus, who being in the form of God, thought it not robbery to be equal with God. Oh, put me in an asylum. Lock me up, I'm crazy. Huh? Now, I don't always walk like that. Sometimes I'm the son of man, not the son of God. Funny how they make that distinction, isn't it? Sometimes I'm the son of God, and I know it. And I feel it, and I experience it. And I can touch other people with that light and that love. Because that's what God is. He's love, right? And as much as you have love, you're my disciple. People say, don't you believe this religion or believe that? Seventh-day Adventist, don't you believe like this? You got to believe this. I said, why do I have to believe that? Well, you're going to go to hell. What are you, the mafia? What kind of coercion is this? No, I ask him that. What do you think? I have fear you're going to come and get me? Put me in hell? That's real intimidating. I say, I live by this scripture, and this is how I live. In this ye shall know if you're my disciples or not, in that you have love one for another. Not that you go to church on 4th and Main, not that you believe this particular belief or that. It's in that you have love one for another. How simple is that? That's pretty easy, isn't it? But you can't love others till you love yourself. Scripture says a man who loves his wife loves himself. Think about that for a while. Huh? You know, when hard times come and the economy gets bad, you know why there's a lot of abuse to the women? The wives take a lot of abuse. You know why? The husbands don't feel worthy. They can't go. They're not the breadwinners. They're not doing what they need to do. So they start getting down on themselves. They get on themselves, what are they going to do? They're going to turn it around. Put it out on her. It's her fault. If I hadn't listened to her, I wouldn't be here. You know, I had a friend that he's passed away, but he had a beautiful wife, could have had a good relationship. It's always her fault. Always her fault. Anyway, the devil made me do it. All right, so, okay. So, you know, that's, Michael was smart. Michael was very smart. He didn't argue. He didn't accuse the accuser. Next time somebody accuses you of something, try not accusing. Try just saying, let the Lord judge that. Huh? That'll throw him off. He won't know what to do with that one. Okay. Oh, now here again, we get back to some amazing mysteries. We're talking about Saturn rules your knees, your skeletal frame, your teeth, and your bones. It rules particularly your knees. Did you know that? I did a reading for a client that came yesterday. Actually, I did 2 readings yesterday. And one of them, they had come a year ago, and he was sitting there, and he had a bad affliction with Saturn in Capricorn, and it was on a cross with Mars, and he's sitting there, and I said, what's wrong with your knee? He pulls his pant leg up. He said, I fell and I broke my kneecap. And he came, it's been a year since I've seen him. He came for another reading yesterday. And I said, how's that knee? He says, I'm still suffering with it. But he's got a cross in his chart on that Mars-Saturn setup that causes that injury. Mars is hurt or injured. And Saturn rules your knees. So Christ was on the cross. It's written, not a bone of his body shall be broke. Why? Because Saturn had no dominion over him. They normally broke the knees to cause the body to not be able to support itself, therefore causing asphyxiation by the compression of the lungs. Amazing. People don't see these things. They don't have any idea how much astrology is here. So, okay. How come we keep going back to this stuff? I want you to know I'm jovial. I'm Jupiter. I'm Sagittarius. See, I can't help it. Saturn is constriction, calcification, coagulation. Saturn is darkness, fear, isolation, paranoia. Saturn ruled separation, alienation, and divorce. Nixon was a Capricorn. Was he paranoid? Huh? He really was, okay. He also had a blood clot in his leg. Did you know that? In his knee that nearly killed him? What is coagula? Saturn, hardened, crystallized, make hard. Saturn does that. So you're walking in this kind of fear all the time. Your body reacts by constricting. If you're real fearful, your eyes close down. Did you know? Did you know when you look at beauty, when you look at something and you see beauty out here, do you know your eyes open up, they dilate? Did you know that? Oh, you say, well, it's just the sun. I'm on a sun in my eyes, there's light in my eyes. You put 10 people in the same light, you look at a child's eyes, generally they're very open. As they get older, they don't stay open that much. What does Scripture say? It says if an eye be single, the whole body would be full of light. Oh, I see these funny interpretations. It's a third eye, it's the pineal gland. It's baloney. It's an eye that's totally dilated. If you dwell on good, your eyes dilate. If a man looks at a beautiful woman, his eyes dilate. The old gem sellers knew that. In China, they used to watch these guys coming to buy gems. As soon as they spotted one in that collection that their eyes would dilate, they knew what to charge them. Price goes way up. And those gem buyers could never figure it out, what's going on. Because they're smart. They're smart. You ever watch card players wearing glasses? You get a royal flush, what do you think your eye's going to do? Wow. Everybody that knows that watches and sees it. So what do the guys do? They wear these sunglasses and make sure nobody can see those eyes. Think I'm kidding? Ask any card player that plays. Here's an old card player here. She used to get kicked out of the casino because she knows how to count cards. She had books written about it. She's an amazing woman. She used to be a high roller. So, shouldn't talk about you. Yeah. Another life, huh? So much. You know what I mean? Now get me on a subject and I can carry you a different direction, but that's my problem. I tend to go, I'm not very structured, Saturn-like, okay? I go where spirit leads me, but that's what this is, Saturn. It's congealing, hardening of everything. It's what it does, okay? Fear does that, okay? Peter, the disciple, was Saturn personified. Peter was the personification. What is he called? The rock. Peter means rock, okay? He was a rock upon which the church was built. But the church was not fourth and main. It's the human temple, which you are. Peter, when the cock, now listen to these words. Don't get offended by this. But I'm just going to show you where it comes from, okay? Peter, when the cock crows thrice, thou shalt deny me 3 times. Peter denied Christ. Peter And the cock is a vulgar name we give to our sexual organ. A man describes the emission of his sexual fluids as what? I got my rocks. Why do you think we do this? Think about these things. You know, nobody sees this stuff. You know, because that's the energy of Saturn. It's being used this way for a generation of child. You can raise it up and it's called regenerative. That's Kundalini. Okay? It's not good, bad, ugly. It's just what it is, okay? We use words like that. What do you think we call it? Cock, rocks, Peter? Why not call him Ron? So I told my wife to call him Ron. Don't I? Actually, we call him Little Ron. Oh, don't turn the tape off. Don't turn the camera off. I'll be in so much trouble when I go home. You have no idea how much trouble I'll be in. Okay. Sorry, Lena. Stop sharing that stuff. Please don't talk about that stuff. Oh, she's so pure. Anyway, whatever. Jupiter, Saturn. There's the symbols. Look at the difference. The soul is subjugated to the senses, the desires. Where Jupiter's the very opposite of that. Okay, how come we keep going back to these again? Have we been there before? Samaya, the Hindus? Yeah, we did all that. Saturn works by God's permission. We talked about that. We did that too. How come I'm getting all this over again? Karma. Okay, yeah. Okay, let's leave this alone a while. How's that? I'm going to shut the door here and we're going to talk about something else. Okay, if I can. I think I can just turn it off for a while and just talk with you guys. Okay. We're having too much fun. Okay. All right. All right. How you're going to get your karma straightened out, okay? And quite frankly, it's simple. But there are some things that aren't simple. The scripture says there's only one unpardonable sin. When I was in prison, I used to read that one. I thought, God, I hope I haven't done that one. I mean, you know, I got a catalog of things I've done. It must be in there somewhere. But I realized as I got into this all and I began to understand what it is, the unpardonable sin is called blasphemy against the Holy Ghost. Okay? Blasphemy against the Holy Ghost. And really what that only means is this. The blasphemer is a curser. If you curse your Holy Ghost, you curse your subconscious mind. That's all you've done. And the reason it's unpardonable is because once the seed's already in there, it's got to come forth. Do you remember the story of Christ and the disciples coming across a field that the enemies had sowed tares in it, which looks like wheat, but it's not wheat, and it destroys the crop? And the disciples said to Christ, what do we do? Should we go in there and try to pluck those seeds out? Like going on a psychiatrist's couch and laying down and say, let's look and find out what we can do to get this stuff out of there. Let's work on it, right? Very often you do more damage than you do good. Okay. So what does he say? He says, no, just leave it alone, let it all grow till it gets maturity. And once it grows, we'll separate the wheat from the tares and we'll burn the tares. Sounds so simple. The point is that it's blasphemy against the Holy Ghost means that you've cursed something into your subconscious so deeply that it's going to manifest. Now, that may represent a physical problem. It may mean that you've said something so many times that it's just irretrievably planted in that subconscious mind, like I'm sick and tired. How many times I hear people say that every day almost. It's part of their vocabulary. I'm sick and tired, I'm sick and tired. You know, you want to be sick, you want to be tired, you know. Yeah, exactly. Oh yeah, you can put them all there. So whatever is planted is there, and you can't much do about it if it's unpardonable. In other words, only that we can't change it because it's already done. But here's what I have had this question, by the way, a lot. When I was lecturing at the National Health Federation one time, a woman in the back of the room asked the same question, basically, what can I do about all the stuff that's in my soul that my parents put in there? You know, don't go outside without a coat, you'll catch the death of pneumonia. I remember my parents telling me that. And it's not going outside catches a cold, it's being inside with all the doors and everything closed up and the bacteria rising. That's why you catch colds. Or whatever they tell you know. I could use my book and find all sorts of examples of this, but the whole point is this. My explanation to the girl in the room was this. If you have a cup of coffee and it's got dark coffee in it and you don't want that coffee in that cup anymore, You really can't do a lot about taking and separating the coffee from that water. But one thing you can do is you can turn the tap on and run water into that cup and let it just keep running good, clean water, and guess what happens? Eventually it's pure water. And that's how you do your soul. Okay? Now you say, what do you do with the soul? How do you do it? The scripture says, whatsoever things are pure, just, good, lovely, if there be any virtue, any praise, anything of good report, think on these things. Why do you think it tells you that? Why, there's plenty of things to think about. I can talk about ISIS and talk about this, and I can watch the daily news, which unfortunately I have got a bad habit of doing. And I can get so depressed and so upset because I watch all this garbage that there's nothing good out there anymore. Okay? So what I'm saying to you is that the real solution is the Christians try to teach that, the disciples. There's a story about Christ and the disciples walking along the road. They came upon a carcass of a dog. The dog was laying there in the heat of the day, and every one of the disciples went by it, made a statement about how ugly the death was and how ugly the maggots were and something negative, the stench. Each one of them, all 12 of them had a bad statement to make until Christ got to it. And he looked down at it and he says, pearls aren't as white as its teeth. Pearls aren't as white as its teeth. The ability to see good in all things, that's an amazing gift. Very few people will ever develop it. But it's something that I've learned in life works. I went before the parole board after 9 years, and the parole board said, Ron, we don't think you're ready for parole. Now, 9 years? Got to do what? We'll see you in 2 years, Ron. Wow, I got to do another 2 years before they're going to consider me for parole. So my response, and that's what I teach my students, and I teach anybody that reads my book, is there's only 3 responses in life. If I can perfect your response, I'll perfect your life. If I can change your response, I'll change your life. I promise you it'll change. And the only 3 responses are accuse, Satan, the devil, accuse, accuse, accuse. Accuse myself. When I was in prison, I was easy to accuse myself. Who the hell was I? A piece of crap. Wanted in 7 states and done terrible things, and I deserved it. So I could spend a whole life wallowing in my own self-pity about the way I destroyed my life. And then I got into a place in my life where I couldn't beat them and I wasn't going to join them. I made several attempts to escape out of prison. I sought out of one prison. I broke and run out of a courtroom. You know, it's one I didn't get killed or shot, but I managed to always get captured. But I was very determined to get away. And then that didn't work, so I finally went into a state of apathy. A lot of people are in that state. They just don't care anymore. They give up, right? Whether they gave up on guys, they give up on what, you know, they're always giving up on things because I just can't handle it anymore, so I'm just pulling out of this game. The third response is what changed my life, and it'll change yours if you'll do it. And I promise it'll change your life. I'm not just maybe it will, could be, might. It'll clear up a lot of karma for you too. And that is the final response which Scripture gives us to do. And it says, let the fruit of thy lips be the sacrifice of praise, and in all things, oh wait, it didn't say some things, in all things give thanks. Let the fruit of the lips be the sacrifice of praise. Sacrifice means giving up something you don't feel. When my dog got hit by a car going 50 miles an hour and thrown 50 feet and laid on the cement, I started cursing as I ran to that dog. Beautiful St. Bernard Shepherd, gorgeous dog. He just shot out in front of a car. He's walking with me. I don't know why he did it. But I do know he did it for a reason, because he taught me something. And I get over there and I'm looking down at him, and my first instinct, of course, is fear, anger, and to accuse. But the driver didn't do anything wrong. He stopped, he came back, he felt real bad about it. And I looked down and I was cursing as I ran over there, and then I remembered the scriptures. It says, Lord, you tell me the fruit of my lips should be the sacrifice of praise, and all things you tell me work together for good? I don't see it. You say your will for me is what? Your will is rejoice evermore. Pray, it says pray, but it meant praise. The word pray comes from praise. Praise without ceasing, and in all things give thanks. Everything in all things give thanks. That's the will he has for me. That's what Scripture says. That's God's will for us. So I stopped and I just looked down at this dog and I said, with this man standing next to me, verbally I said it. I said, praise the Lord, thank you. Guy looked at me like I was crazy. I said it again, praise the Lord, thank you. Guy really thought he met a nut. I don't know what he thought, but he thought he was crazy, I'm sure. And then I remember thinking, when I praised and I gave thanks for this, I remember thinking, well, who knows, maybe I'm being protected from some future evil. Because when you do something irrational, your rational mind will find a reason for it. It will always make a quick rational explanation for it. So I remember thinking to myself, well, this probably would have resulted in something worse along the path if he hadn't been killed. As I'm having that thought, I swear before you, a dog's nose is bleeding, he's not breathing, he's laying on this cement. As soon as I had that thought, he jumps up. He took off, he ran behind the house, he got caught in a fenced-in yard. I caught up with him, I put a leash on him, he dragged me home at a full run. Before we got home, he wasn't even limping. Yeah, you know, coincidence, right? Coincidence, right? I say in my book, on one of the chapter headings of my book, is coincidences are clad in shining light for them with eyes to see. Okay? So what we're dealing with here is a response, aren't we? A response to life. So here I am before the parole board and said, 2 more years, Watson, we'll see you. Now how am I going to praise and give thanks if I'm not going to praise the God that's in each of them? There's 6 members on the board in front of me, and I said, thank you. I turned to go, and the head of the board said, Watson, what did you say? Get back here. I turned around, I looked at him, he said, what did you say? Are you a wise guy? Are you being facetious? I said, no, sir. He said, why do you say thank you? I said, well, sir, I believe the combined wisdom of the board members here is greater than my age, and it must have been a correct decision or you wouldn't have made it. I praised him. I turned to go. I hear my name again, Watson. I look back, they're all going like this to each other, nodding. So we've changed our mind. I doubt if it's ever happened in the annals of the history of the parole board. I don't think they've ever changed their mind. So we changed our mind. We've decided we're going to send you to New York. You have 2 armed robberies that are 9 years old. They still want you. Oh, yeah, out of the pot into the fire, right? So I tell you that, but what happened was, God, is it really 4:30? Oh my God. So they sent me to New York, and I get to New York, and I went to arraignment. I never went to trial. I had a friend I was writing with who had just received a lot of money in a divorce settlement, and she got me a great lawyer, Marty Stoller. Marty Stoller took my case, and I beat it for lack of speedy trial. But I went before the arraigning judge, and he was looking at my record, and I remember seeing Marty up at the front of the room with the prosecutor, and Marty was one of these guys that's always doing this. Oh, he's going like this, and the prosecutor's trying to go like this. Pretty soon I see the judge doing this. I see the prosecutor doing this. I said, man, that guy's powerful. Just his body language, you know what I mean, was really working. Because I couldn't hear a word, but I'm way in the back of the room. And then he calls me up and says, Watson, he said, I see you studied Hebrew. He was Jewish. I said, yes, sir, I did. He said, I'm so proud of you. I said, I hope you don't come back, and I hope you get out. He said, but I'm just the arraigning judge. Can you make 2 $500 cash bonds? $500 cash, of course. So I'm going to make sure you get out. You've been locked up too long. So I went back to Ohio, started my parole, beat it for lack of speedy trial, and I'm free. That was 1972. I've had a blessed life. Wonderful life. So blessed. But to answer your question about karma, karma is the law. The law is karmic. If you're under the law and you think you can earn your way out of it, if you think it got real hot in here, the air conditioner went off, I guess. If you think for a moment you can work your way out of it, if you think you deserve it, you're fooling yourself. It's by grace, which is unmerited favor. And if you walk in knowledge of that and stop living in fear and regrets and recrimination and guilt, your life will transform overnight. And if you'll start praising and giving thanks for what you're now cursing, your life will change. And I promise you that. The next time you drop a jar of mayonnaise on the floor and say, instead of saying, son of a bitch, God, you know, stop a minute and listen, because it's practice. You'll need it for next time. So as you clean it up, you get what I'm getting at? Practice it. Praise, give thanks, trust, and good. I could do this. I could keep you here for another 3 hours, honestly, or probably longer, talking about how many miracles have happened in my life. And they happen because of praise. I mean, I could do this from buying furniture and the company goes bankrupt. And I'm losing all this money, and I'm thinking, well, how can this be good, Lord? But I'll praise and give you thanks. I get offered a job in California from Chicago, and I just bought a home in Chicago, and I bought this furniture to match that particular decor, blue leather. Who wants blue leather? But that's what I got. Okay, so I get an offer for a job in vice president of a company in California, and they offer me $104,000 a year salary and say, come on out and live here. I move there and I sell my business for a couple $100,000, walk into California with all this money in my pocket, not knowing what to do, being pretty ignorant about the system. Financial advisor comes into my life, says, you got to spend that money, Ron. I got to spend it. Yeah, you know, if you don't spend it, the government's going to take it. You go buy yourself a house, the interest rates are 18%. That's all write-off. I said, what do I want to buy a house like that for? You need to spend $250,000 at least for a house. Whew, I'm learning fast. This is the world out here? I thought I was going to be just settle down and have my money and keep it. No, the government's going to take it all. So anyway, what did I bring you to that for? So I get to California. I buy a new house, beautiful home, beautiful 3,200 square foot, orchard, pools. It's gorgeous. And I move in and I get a call from this company. Mr. Watson, remember you ordered furniture from us and we went bankrupt. Well, we reorganized our company, and you know, you're the only person in the whole group that won't lose any money because you only gave us the third down. And we can absorb that and we can give you your furniture. And we'll not only give you the furniture, we'll give you this, we'll give you that, an ottoman, we'll give you this, a little, you know, whatever. Pillows, they're throwing everything at me. And I says, can I change the color? I said, yeah, I don't, because I needed it for a new house. I said, well, let's make it brown furniture and get it shipped out. Who would have known that could work? Now think about all of this. If I had to ship that heavy furniture, that leather furniture from Illinois, California, what would have that cost me? It was heavy. And then to think that that could work for good. But when I praised and gave thanks, I thought I just wrote the money off. I wrote that off. It's a loss. I could do this all day to you. I could show you miracle after miracle. People say, oh, miracles stopped happening 2,000 years ago. Remember Paul and Silas? In the Bible, they were beat, falsely accused, and cast into prison. Can you imagine you get, let's the police bust in here right now, beat us all upside the head, blame us of having a coke party or something silly, marijuana, what do they want to accuse us for? Plant dope on us, take us down, put us in jail. They don't even have the respect to put us in jail. They put us in the hole, they call it the hole. Back then they called it the dungeon. And they put Paul and Silas in there, they falsely accused them. And around midnight, listen to the scriptures. Are these guys crazy? And it's interesting what the time was. Midnight, the darkest point of the day. And around midnight, the other prisoners heard them singing praises to God. Are they out of their head? How can they praise God? And immediately thereupon there was an earthquake. And their prison opened up and their shackles fell off. And the guards ran away. How can that be? You think that was a mystical story that made up out of? I can tell you, I used to sit in my cell praising and giving thanks, and I saw fissures running through my walls. I'm telling you the truth. I saw fissures running through my concrete walls of my cell. I've seen things you wouldn't believe. If I told you, you'd think, you'd put me in a mental hospital. Actually, they did that to me. I was in Ohio. You know why they put me in a mental hospital? About that mental hospital stuff. Because I took 48 sleeping pills and almost died. And they decided to go to a mental hospital instead. I could tell you war stories about that. So I've been there, my friend. I've been to the lowest points on this planet. I've been to the lowest points. What has he descended into hell? What has he ascended into heaven? He first descended into hell. I've been to hell and back, okay? As you have. So I love you all. I thank you so much for a wonderful sharing. I don't know that I answered all your questions, but I can give you this. I'll give you this. Don't make it complex. Keep it simple. Everybody thinks there's got to be some very, very hard way to get to the truth. The truth is so simple that a child can comprehend it, but an adult can't. Adults got to make it complex. It can't be so easy, Ron. You're telling me all I have to do is praise and give thanks and trust in good. You tell me I have to forgive myself for all the things I've done. You tell me I got to love myself and then love others. That's all there is to it? Yeah, that's it, guys. It's simple. Stop making it more. You want the messages, you want to understand the mystery? Study with me. Read my book. It'll open up doors for you. I've had many people, I had a priest tell me he never understood the Bible until he read the book. The bottom line is, I'm not here to sell you anything, I'm here to tell you something. You can change your life. It's attitude. It's your response. Stop cursing, stop being guilty, stop blaming others, and start praising, finding good. If a man has 9 faults and 1 virtue, praise that good. That's the only thing that will redeem him. You're finding fault with him, it's not going to help him. You think that's going to do anything, it's going to change him? No. If he has 1 virtue, praise it. Magnify the good. Dwell on the good. Pearls aren't as white as his teeth. You got that message? Good. I love you all. Take care. Have a good day.
How much is your book?
I've got 2 books. I got the last edition, which is just the current Amazon edition. It has 1 more chapter in it. It's 20. The other one is 15, the last edition. They're very close to the same book. And then I have CDs that are CD albums if you want. Elaine will take care of all that out there. We have MasterCard Visa machine. We can run all that for you. So if you don't have cash, we can help you with that. Yeah, support us. I appreciate that. You know, support the cause. Good cause. We're a good cause.
Thank you.
Another question.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you have an upcoming class on Saturdays.
Yes.